Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. My name is Shannon, and I'm going to be talking about how I helped my client, who's an OBM, an online business manager, save money first, then break the paycheck to paycheck cycle with her business. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about this in two parts. So we're going to be talking about how to save money first, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that. You need a budget. And the second part will be what it looks like to break the paycheck to paycheck cycle in You Need a Budget. So You Need a Budget is the only software that I teach my clients how to use because it is the best software. It's been around for 20 years. It was built by a CPA. It has testimonials, decades of experience. It has helped thousands and thousands of people get out of debt, save money, and build wealth. And it comes with this entirely different philosophy on how to manage your money. Also, the way it's set up and displayed, from everything down to the colors, to the way it moves, to the way that you can organize categories, just helps you psychologically save more money and pay off debt. So as I'm walking you through this, I don't want you to think this is something that could be easily replicated in a spreadsheet, because honestly, it can't. This software is built in a specific way to help you save money and get out of debt. So if you are already drinking the YNAB Kool-Aid, this is the video for you. If you have not drank the Kool-Aid yet, you need to go drink it. All right, so let's jump into how this was working. So when my client came to me, she had been using You Need a Budget. She was using the software. She had also someone that was like reconciling all the transactions for her. Our first assignment together, which she came, was to actually really separate the business transactions and the personal transactions. They still were mixed together. So our first task was getting her to get completely separate so we could get clarity on her finances. If you don't know how much money is coming into your checking account, if you don't know how much money is going out of your checking account, how much you're spending every single month, you need to know those numbers first. That is a big part of the list that I do with my clients. It's the number one thing. I do not skip over that step. And if you don't know how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, I am hosting a 4-week bootcamp in January, specifically for business owners to set up their first You Need a Budget. You want to make sure you're setting categories right. You want to make sure you have the expenses laid out correctly. There's like a whole bunch of strategy behind setting up YNAB so you're successful with it. And if you want to come join, it's 70% off. I'm limiting it to six spots. I had 7. One has already been taken. If you want to come join, and the link down below. Okay. So she had been using You Need a Budget. She had someone that was doing the transactions for her, but she wasn't getting the best out of the software. She didn't understand why she wasn't saving money or paying off debt. And here's what we did. So we got that clarity. We're starting to separate the business and the personal transactions that were happening. And now when we had our budget laid out, we had it laid out in a specific way. I had her set these things called money goals so she could see them in her budget. I had her set up her expenses in a way that made sense to her. This is very important. If you set up your budget in a way that you just, when you look at it, it feels confusing, it feels disorganized, go watch a video that I made about why YNAB categories are so important, because you want your money to feel like you can see all of the money clearly laid out. It makes sense. So she went through, allocated all of her money for her expenses. And that month, she ended up having an extra $1,000. Now, the way my client typically went about this was she would leave money up here. Okay. And this is how most people do old school budgeting. And this kind of falls in the category of tracking your expenses. Like when you're just leaving money here, it's going to get spent. And it's going to get spent in a way you don't want it to get spent. So this is why people preach budgeting. This is why we preach money management. But this also is a part of YNAB's philosophy, is they give every dollar a job. So what that meant was she was either spending this money that was left over sometimes, maybe it was going to different things, but now we had gotten clarity on her budget. We had sorted her categories. We started to understand how much money was going out of her budget, how much money was coming in. Now, this is the fun part. Stick around. This is the fun part, okay? All right. So she had $1,000 left up here after we had assigned her expenses. We had put some money to taxes. We had put some money to other things that were coming out of her account. She had an extra $1,000. All right. And now she usually would just leave it there. And then, of course, like I said, it would just get spent. And this is what happens with most people's budget. Okay. So if you're using YNAB right now and you are leaving money in this ready to assign, you are probably not making your goal all or fast enough. And this is what's going wrong. Okay. So I told her, all right, we assigned all the expenses. I might have had her put some money in this category. I do this a lot when I'm first starting with my clients. I always have them assign maybe an extra $100 or $200 to stuff I forgot to budget for, because in that first month, we're still figuring out their expenses. So I probably had to put some money there. Now we have this $1,000. Now I'm like, perfect. We are getting to a spot where now we are doing not just tracking our expenses. Now we're getting into the money management part. So I told her to take this amount of money and I had her assign it to a little category we made together called next month. So I am always looking to get my client ahead of their bills. I am always looking to break the paycheck to paycheck cycle. And really what it looks like is, I'll show you in a second, is it's basically when you're getting ahead of your bills, all you're doing is just like giving your savings a job. That's really all you're doing. All right, but this is what happens. So we assign some money to savings. I come and meet with my client again about 2 weeks from our last call. And she said, oh, Shannon, I had to pay some money to get this legal thing worked out. I said, okay, no problem. So she took some money from here. It was $500 to get this legal thing sorted with her business. And we're going to put it in a category that I just talked about. So the budget for. Second part of this video, which is how do we break the paycheck to paycheck cycle? We have $500 in the next category. So what this looks like, this is what most people look like. Okay. Instead, though, this is what most people's budget might look like when they're using You Need a Budget. They have this called savings, right? And even just the name, like even just putting it as the name savings means I just put the money there. But we have to think about it from this perspective of what's that money for? Even your savings should have a job. And your job, a job could be like emergency expense, right? You could title it that. But even when you're doing your budget and you just put a generic name on something, challenge yourself to think like this has to have a specific job, because if it doesn't, it's just going to get, that's what will happen. So a lot of people just easily pull money from this category for anything, not really thinking like, oh, I put that money in savings because we're going to need a new fridge in a couple months, or I put that money in savings because I knew my new tires were coming up, right? So giving this a specific job would be super helpful. If you have money in savings, instead titling tires or whatever, right? This is what happens. Your brain sees this budget, okay? And it will say, I can't take this $500. It's going to tires, not its savings, not it's randomly here, right? It has a job purpose. Okay. So for my client's example, though, this is what I like to do with them first. Well, first we like to get clarity, then we get some savings, and then I start to get them to break the paycheck to paycheck cycle. So that is why I have them create a next month category. Now what I'm going to do is going to freak some people out. Don't worry. Don't worry. This is the part where people start to freak out, and I'll tell you why we don't have to worry about this. Okay? So she had all of December's expenses covered with that amount. She had that thing come out and I said, okay, we're covered for December. Great. And it was like December 6th when we had our call. All right. So now I go into January and this is what I have her do. I have her take this $500 and have her start assigning it. Okay. So I have her move about, it says $500 there. It's just a random amount. Okay. How much are we going to spend on Amazon in January? Is it going to be this $500 that you spent last month? And she's like, it's going to be a lot lower. It's a lot lower expense in January. Okay. Move $100 there. Move $35 to ConvertKit. Move $35 to Squarespace. This is when most people start to freak out because they start to think that this money is spent. It's not spent. Okay. The money is still in your savings account until you move it from the savings account to the business checking, right? And this is when we're just doing this for an example. I just asked my client, like, how do they feel about this? Do we want to move the money from the savings to the checking account? It could be that the money is in your checking account and you just haven't given it a job. There could be lots of different scenarios. The thing is, the money is still there. Okay. So even when she's back here in December, if something happens and she needs to use that amount of money, she can use that money. It's still there. It's still in her checking account, or it's still in that savings account if we need to. But what I try to show my clients is when we actually move that money around and we start giving it a purpose, uh, that's when it really starts to change. But that's when you truly start to understand, oh, wait a second, I have money that is already assigned. You don't even think about touching it. Now, because it's already allocated to these categories, she doesn't think about touching it anymore, right? She's not even going to think about, oh, I have this money from savings I can just pull because I want to like go and do that thing or whatever, right? It's like her spending money in a way that she usually wouldn't want. She would rather do this. She would rather get a month ahead than spend her money that place. But when it doesn't have the purpose, when it doesn't have a job, we're just going to spend it. And so as I do this, always checking with the client, does this feel okay? Does this make you nervous? Because sometimes with other people, this can just totally freak, right? Like this can just completely freak them. They could be like, oh my God, what's happening here? I don't get it. I don't like it. And now also when we do it over here, you won't see the money go down in December's budget. So this could also throw you off too. So sometimes what I do for other clients is we'll do something where we'll just give it another name. We'll just say, instead of calling it next month, we could always say January recurring expenses. And then what you could do is you could actually list the expenses here in the budget if that makes you feel better, because still seeing the money here might confuse you. That's totally fine. You can then lay out January's recurring expenses, double them here, put them down here, or just leave it in this bucket. Just leave it in that bucket. Don't touch it. Okay. All right. So this is how I showed the client, though, you need a budget, how we break paycheck to paycheck cycle. It's we start getting ahead on our bills. We start getting ahead on January's bills while we're still in December. So it was like I said, it was the beginning of December when I had the last call with her, and we were moving the money around for January. We have broken the client payment to client payment cycle where you are waiting for that check to come in or that payment to come in. So then you can then pay yourself immediately because your rent's due, and then you're moving money around constantly. And I also found that's what my client was doing too. There was a constant, like the money would come in and need to go out immediately because the bill was due in 24 hours, right? Like had to immediately go out. And that happens a lot too. That's part of the paycheck to paycheck cycle, though. The money will come in and it will go right out. This is how you can break this cycle. And there's so many different ways you can go about doing this. Like I said, you can give it different names. You can give it different jobs. You can put it in different categories. You can assign it in January and see what's like, see what this feels like. Oh my God. How January, like half of January's expenses covered. Oh my God. That feels so good, right? December is covered. I don't have to worry about December's bills. I got 2 weeks in January covered. And then any money that comes in the month of December, then you can either start chunking away towards debt. This would all be dependent upon what your money situation looks like. This is why You Need a Budget is the best software out there, hands down, period, because it is the software that is designed in so many ways for you to see where your money is going, how it's laid out, where you want it to go, what it could cover, what it could do in the future. This is when you move from just tracking your expenses to now planning and managing your money. This is what it actually can look like when you start managing your money and planning your money instead of just tracking the expenses. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. I will be back with some more, sharing some more behind the scenes of what I'm doing with my clients. If you are ready to start using You Need a Budget, you tried it before, you were overwhelmed, you know it's the best budgeting software out there, money management software out there, but you're just either intimidated by it, you need some help and some handholding as you go through it, My 4-week boot camp starts January 8th. We are going to be doing 4 live classes. So you come on to my Zoom calls and you open up your budget and you start setting categories, you start setting expenses. And by the end of the month, you will have ultimate clarity on how much money came into your account and what expenses and spending you are doing, whether you like it or not. But getting that clarity is the first step to getting out of the money chaos and just tracking your expenses and actually stepping into this part, which is the financial planning, the management, the piece that actually gets the ball rolling on saving and debt payoff. But you have to do this step first. You have to do the financial clarity first. You can't get very far unless you have that piece. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the bootcamp 6 spots left, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.